All right, Coast to Coast Combat Hour. Ed Carvajal here with Matthew Moneymaker Hawkins. As always, episode is brought to you by AllAccessMMA.com. Make sure you check out All Access MMA for your mixed martial arts news. Matt, we didn't get to catch up on a lot of stuff. Obviously, we had a huge Bellator event, huge UFC, lots of craziness happened. We had Fernando on last week that I'm actually going to write a piece about his judging opinion on MMA judging, because we did have one or two fights on the UFC 265 that had questionable judging. So it's definitely relevant. But what are we going to start with, man? I mean, we saw history made with a second generation mixed martial artist and AJ McKee win the featherweight Grand Prix. So we have to backtrack and catch up. I don't know what you want to start with, but I mean, I know that was one we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, no. First of all, good to be back for another week of the Combat Hour. But I think we should jump back, considering the magnitude of the event and kind of how it unfolded. So this is the Bellator 263 card that took place now a week and a half ago in Los Angeles.
That's the one you were at. I just forgot that you were there.
Yeah, I was there. Fun atmosphere, really fun crowd. Fans love AJ McKee. It is for going to a non-UFC event. It ranked up there with, I don't want to know if it was a click lower than Gina Carano, the reaction she would get in San Jose, and it was a click lower than Fedor would get in some of the events that I like, the Russian event, or not the Russian event, the event in Chicago, where there was a bunch of Russians there and a bunch of, Polish fans, stuff in the crowd that kind of had his back. So it was like that. Those I was on the floor, so the pop might have been different, but for not being on the floor for this fight, it was, and probably a COVID crowd of maybe, let's say 7,000, 6 to 7, it would be my rough guess. It was about as loud of a crowd as I've ever heard for a Bellator event. And a fighter that wasn't already established as a world champion, and it was crazy. So he comes out, Pitbull comes out, and McKee just absolutely baffles him, I guess. Pitbull really didn't even throw a punch. Looked like he was constantly guessing at what McKee was gonna do. I saw Atlas. Is it Tony Atlas?
Teddy Atlas.
Teddy Atlas. Tony Atlas is a wrestler. Teddy Atlas break it down, and he basically said how good of a salesman McKee was, because he kept selling the punch, well, and he followed it up with the kick. And
so in the post-fight press conference, McKee said that Pitbull took a peek at him warming up, or whatever's going on, however it's set up back there when the fighters are getting ready for their next fight. Everyone, like Mohegan Sun, they've all got their sectioned off little warm-up rooms, especially with the COVID protocols and stuff like that. So it's easy for someone in passing. I mean, even when they don't have it, like when I've been there covering events, there is like a section where everyone, there's a lot of traffic and you could pass by and see folks. So he said that he saw Pitbull kind of sneaking peeks at his warm-up. And so in the post-fight press conference, McKee was like, so he's got an idea of what I'm going to do. I need to change it up. And it looks like that might have played in what we saw with the hesitancy on Pitbull's part. But I got flashbacks from that fight of when I first saw McKee, like what he's capable of, I was covering, he was on the undercard of an event out here on the East Coast at Mohegan Sun. I believe it was Bellator 178. I actually wrote a whole thing on it on the newsletter that I do for folks that follow the podcast. I dropped a link for the newsletter. I only started it like a month ago, so if you subscribe, I'd appreciate it. But I wrote the week after the Sunday after that happened. It was Bellator 178, and he knocked out Dominic Mazzata, and it was almost similar to the left high kick that he throws. Is almost similar. I'd have to rewatch the fight. It might have been a right high kick, but the kid is just so talented as a second generation mixed martial artist. And I've interviewed him for Front Proof Media when I was at Front Proof Media and MMAnews.com that I do now. Fernando Quiles, who's been on this podcast, we talked to all those guys just before the pandemic started, when the featherweight, back when he was first announced he was going to fight Darren Caldwell. And he's just, it's almost like you're getting to see his dad Antonio's molding him into what a mixed martial artist should be in this day and age. And I knew I had him picked to win, but I didn't think he was going to win like that.
Yeah, I picked him to win as well. During the day of the event, I started to lean a little bit more towards Pitbull. I don't know why. The press conference didn't impress me all that much. I thought it was a little funny, and I didn't know if McKee would come out too emotional, but he did the exact opposite. He came out. Actually, really, neither of them showed any emotion. There was no, I thought we'd have a quick firefight, and really, we ended up with some kind of pawing around for about a minute, and then there was the explosion from McKee where he hit the head kick, and then really it was a follow up punch that
it was an uppercut.
Uppercut that really did that finished off that sequence, and then he pops up and gets thrown in the guillotine choke. Really a weird situation because he never went unconscious at any point, so it was kind of a weird thing. He was obviously finished, and he was either going to go unconscious or have his neck broken. But it was weird how it unfolded. But just huge, and like I said, the crowd really accepted. I know it didn't do great numbers on TV, which is the first thing that everybody jumps to. But as far as the live crowd goes, I mean, I tweeted that I thought that, or, I don't know if I tweeted, I might have posted it somewhere, that I thought that maybe McKee could eventually bring Staples Center to Bellator. And, the right matchup, he probably could sell out the Staples Center in LA almost, but I don't know if with the TV ratings, I mean, the fact that this only got, less than 200,000 eyes on it, other than the peak moments, of the main event is a little bit concerning. I understand that it doesn't get as many eyes as obviously ESPN does as far as television's available in the United States, but I went back and I looked at some of the earlier numbers, and like the Strikeforce Contender Series used to get 250,000 views. So it almost did 100,000 less than what like a Contender Series did. Like the Fedor fights, the bigger fights on Showtime generally did in the 700 to million range. So in the 550s, even for some of the other fights. So obviously MMA has changed. We do a lot more streaming now. So I don't know how accurate the numbers completely are, but I guess we'll know how it unfolds, whether Bellator is able to continue to be successful or not. I mean, they're not. If those are their actual numbers, they're going to be in big trouble. So I hope that those aren't the actual numbers.
The problem is they changed where to watch. People get used to things, so they changed where to watch in the last year 3 times. Like they went from Paramount to CBS Sports to Showtime. So I just, and Showtime's up, it's a paywall, even though it's not that great. I mean, they had a great deal, for $4.99. I think that's finishing up for, if you got it when they first did it, I think that would have lasted you their whole, up until the end of the year. November-ish anyway.
Yeah, because it was April. We used it for I ordered it for the first Musasi and Lima fight, which was at the end of April. Yeah. So I'm still on the $4.99, but once it goes to $10 or $14 or whatever it is, I can't reason keeping Showtime. The rest of their product is not good.
It's not bad. I mean, I've actually been watching been watching Ray Donovan. I'm looking forward to Billions. I actually watched all of Billions, when there was no Bellator, so I
just have so much streaming stuff now.
Yeah,
it's like, I have all my stuff, and I can't even watch what I have on other stuff, and it's like it's kind of the odd man out. When, not to sound bad, there's other ways to watch Bellator, and that makes it unfortunately an easier decision. But getting back to,
and I think they put their events relatively soon on Pluto, which is free. So because they have their own channel on Pluto TV.
I love the broadcast. I love the look for Showtime. The live event there it's great. The ramp, everything about Bellator is great. It's just their numbers, and I see people that I don't necessarily like on some online forums mentioning their name and how that's holding them back. And for years I kind of dismissed that, but part of me also kind of has to look at it and go, is the name Bellator just not something that's ever really going to pick up in the United States when MMA is basically known as extreme fighting or ultimate fighting? Is Bellator something that, or combat, we got Combate Global. It just, I wonder. So that's something to think about. And
well,
I don't know.
But one thing we have to look at though, that event was major. I mean, they have the Fedor thing coming. I know the other name attached wasn't too popular, but that Fedor's attached with his fight coming up in October. But one thing you have to look at is I feel like a lot of people are forgetting that for all the crap that Bellator gets, this is our podcast, I can curse. For all the shit Bellator gets about signing, and I'm wearing.
Mhm.
It's funny, I'm wearing this shirt because Rampage was in McKee's corner when it went that night.
Mhm.
But for all the shit that they get about signing older fighters that the UFC doesn't want or whatever, McKee was someone that they brought in. He's 18-0. All 18 fights were, they molded him same like Aaron Pico.
Mhm.
It's just proof that they have young talent that they're molding for the sport that's world class. And I feel like a lot of folks are just kind of, even Pipple's Michael Chandler. People are throwing his name around now that he's in the UFC, but technically, it's he's talent that Bellator molded and grew to make him the world class level that all these guys are,
Mhm.
all three guys that I just mentioned. So I feel like that's one thing that we're the minority, you and me, because we look at that and see the positive in it, but the fact of the matter is the UFC monster is so big and the fans are such zombies. They're just going to be, they're quick to thumbs down. Oh, they're on Showtime. Oh, Bellator's number. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So,
But also the numbers are the numbers. So as much as we want to be homers for Bellator
mhm.
or really root for them, we got to be honest and go, that numbers can't hold up. And what could they have done differently? What now? Obviously, I'm not a TV executive, and I don't claim to even be half as smart as half of these guys when it comes to it. But if I'm running the show there, I'm
No, we're
putting
doing a podcast from
we're
our
doing a
fucking.
podcast. But if but I bet you if I sat down with one of them, they might. And I said, what if you would have put the McKee fight on CBS and advertised Fedor fighting on Showtime a month
I
later?
think someone asked that too at the post.
Like that just seems like that would have been you would on a night where the UFC had a lower name card. You could have had CBS to yourself, and you could have used that platform to advertise Showtime being the home of Bellator and Fedor Emelianenko, who was a star on CBS, having a fight on Showtime a month later. It just seems like that's the stuff that you need to do because, and I don't know. Again, those are the smart guys that apparently know what they're doing. But if it doesn't work out, then maybe they're not as smart as they deserve credit for. But with that said, you also bring up McKee being the homegrown talent. He's the actual. He's the model for what they dreamed of when they did that.
Mhm.
You had the Fortune brothers. You had him. You still have. The other wrestler who's undefeated. Slips my mind. Welterweight. Gotta. I'll find it here, but the other thing, but the UFC card, this card itself, without looking to see if a couple of these guys maybe fought on an early UFC prelim, which I do not believe. I think this was the first Bellator card I can remember from top to bottom that didn't have a single former UFC fighter on it.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, you had 11 fights with no UFC fight. No, everybody. This was their Russian contingent. This kind of card was the perfect card if you wanted to
Oh
advertise
yeah,
like the up
yeah,
and coming dudes.
yeah.
I will have one question because I watched it. How did you score Mads Burnell and Emmanuel Sanchez? Did you see Burnell winning that fight the way like 30-27? Because
Well, that's one of the ones we kind of mentioned. We kind of hinted to a couple of odd decisions from that event when we had Fernando on last week. Um,
I don't know if you remember. I felt
I'm
like
trying
I was
to.
in the minority because I thought Sanchez won the fight. But again, I'm in the crowd and it's a different
I
perspective.
should know because I watched it twice, so
Uh-huh.
I should remember it. But the first time I watched it, I had a few in me, so I can't really.
Okay.
That's probably what's messing me up. But I mean, I think I was leaning Burnell though, just because as I'm recalling, I was leaning Burnell when I watched it. The other fight that I think we mentioned too during when we had Fernando on last week was with Primus and because Primus was active off his back. I forget his opponent's name, but that was a split decision.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
mega. That's the one he lost, but he lost to Islam Mega Mamedov, not Megamedov, Mamedov.
Momentum.
But
Yeah. But yeah, big Dagestani card. But I mean, anyway, we can't spend too much time on it because we
no,
gotta talk about UFC 265. Which so funny thing is because we were talking about it before we started recording was how we kind of this fight, like for me when they lost the Nunes fight, I was kind of like, oh well maybe I'll just watch the prelims and the ESPN prelims and then but I wound up watching the whole thing because of course I have to because I do the editorial for MMA News, and then the aftermath. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff that we said we're going to talk about, but just to start off with the whole aftermath of Lewis and Gunn. I kind of didn't care about the interim. I still don't care about the interim title fight, but I like that. I'm kind of excited about Cyril Gane and Francis Ngannou fighting each other. So it was kind of like a nice what do they call it, a layup for the future heavyweight fight.
It seemed that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has to happen because when you look at the rankings, I don't know where you go if that fight doesn't happen. I mean, sure, you got Stipe, who's always there, but eventually he's going to come to he's got to hit the downside here sooner than later. And
Yeah.
um, I mean, he got knocked out brutally by Ngannou in his last fight, so it's just kind of a weird situation when you look at the rankings on how um, everybody's kind of beat each other, and then you almost have some gatekeepers that are kind of cleaning house and making
Mm.
sure none of the lower ranked, 5 to 10 ranked guys, move up, and we keep having revolving doors. So I don't know, but Gon looked great. Lewis looked terrible. Um, and
Well, Gun. I mean, well, the funny thing about Gun is that, I mean, the way he moves as a heavyweight, him and Stipe can both make the same claim that they don't move like heavyweights. They're very spry for heavyweights. I mean, there's a lot of offense coming out of there. The way that both him and Stipe, the way they fight and counter offense, and someone like Lewis. I mean, we've already seen Lewis and Ngannou, but the fight against Brett Okamoto put up a video of the two of apparently because they used to train together, Gon and Ngannou,
Mhm.
and there's it's only a couple seconds long, but if you look at the sparring footage between them two, it's kind of hard not to pick Ngannou, just because he looked like he was getting the better of. Again, it's only maybe 8 seconds of footage that Brett Okamoto put up,
Uh-huh.
but it just made me excited for that because they're both super athletic. I mean, you have the explosive power of Ngannou versus of the athleticism and savvy kickboxing of Gon. I again, UFC 265 was kind of like, I wasn't really excited about it, but the results of it made me very excited for what we can get out of, especially the heavyweight division. And uh, the thing with you mentioned Stipe Miocic. I have a feeling, especially with the whole Dana White address at the post-fight press conference too, the whole thing with John Jones moving up, Jones talking about he's not fighting till 2022. Dana White kind of brushed that off, but mentioned the 2022, and now we're hearing chatter of Stipe and Jones maybe being the contender fight for heavyweight, and we all know that the UFC likes to play that game. They'll give a guy right underneath the fight that's going to happen, so they kind of have that to market in the future. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case for 2022.
It might be. I have a hard time seeing Jones take a fight against somebody that's not the champion. I don't know if his
Mm-hmm.
ego will allow him to do that. Um, but yeah, as far as Ngannou and Gon, it's definitely kind of a clash of styles. You
Yeah.
got you got the smooth, more precise kickboxer in Gon, and then you've got the kind of the wild man in Ngannou. So yeah, it does. Until I see somebody hitting Ngannou on his chin, and if I see that man's actually a human and can go down, it's hard for
Mm-hmm.
me to see anybody really finishing him before they get hit with one of his atomic shots. Gon's not going to take him down, I wouldn't expect. So
Yeah.
that doesn't seem to be where that's his biggest weakness. So I don't know. But definitely, I like how, in theory, this sets that fight up, and there should be
There should be.
there should be no arguments, there should be no talk, but we know that the UFC likes to get, once guys get in a position of power, the UFC really turns into chicken shit and doesn't want to give them money and
Yeah,
sidelines
we
them.
get BMF belts and
Yeah, we start seeing the
main
sidelining
events with
stuff.
no titles, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in these interim titles, and I mean, it really doesn't make sense. And Ngannou just won the title all that not long ago, so um, it's weird how it unfolds. But I do like that's how that it shaped up this way. Um, and we got Rosenstruck and Blades coming up at
Mm-hmm.
267, so that'll kind of help. That'll basically eliminate one of the two of them from anything in the near future, and then that leaves Miocic, and like you said, what will happen with Jones? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
now's the time. If I'm Jones, probably the best time to come into heavyweight. I mean, you don't really have that technical. If he's able to get Ngannou down, you figure Jones is the favorite in that fight all of a
Yeah.
sudden, and really the only wrestler out there that really would maybe not work so well would be somebody like Curtis Blades, but that would be a fight that would be way down the line. I don't see that happening early. So interesting. Also big fights on the note on that card. Jose Aldo picks up a huge win over Pedro Munoz. Looked outstanding.
Yeah.
Looked as good as we've seen him at 135 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Looked huge for the weight, but seems to be making the weight a lot easier than he even made 145. So he either changed his lifestyle, changed his nutrition, something major happened, but
Mm-hmm.
you forget how young he is in the grand scheme of the world, and
Well, because
you
he's
know
been fighting for so long.
because he's
Yeah.
been fighting for so long. But I mean, the fact I think he's 33 now, he really he could. We might be looking at another Jose Aldo run, which
Yeah.
is wild. And we'll see what happens with Jan and how all this other stuff unfolds. But that was big. Vicente Luque picks up a big win over Michael Chiesa.
That
Kind of.
was that was one that it's funny because I remember when I had to write my breakdown for it or my prediction for MMAnews.com and submitting them. That was a rough one because I knew it's funny if you watch the fight there. I kind of had them in my own eye. I had them even as far as their grappling skills, the submission skills. I had them even, so I thought that would cancel each other out and they would make it like a kickboxing match or a striking match. That's not what happened. They went to the ground, and I favored Chiesa for getting the submission, which he almost did, and somehow Luque got out of it and was able to. It's weird because the angle. I know I retweeted the photo. He got the head and arm from the had an event where it happened too. But I was just I don't want to say I was surprised, but the way he set it up off the scramble was beautiful. I didn't think Chiesa was doing everything right to tap. I know he was hard on himself afterward too, which I thought was just odd. Because it was a legit technique. It's off of a scramble. Shit happens. But I mean that was me. I love seeing that stuff. So that was a good win for Luque. I don't know about his call out, but but it was a good win for him.
I missed that. Who do you call out?
Usman.
Oh, well, I mean, we had this discussion in the past about that division and kind of running out of people. We always kind of talked about Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy kind of made the jump after he beat Luque, and then obviously he was just defeated by Gilbert Burns. But
Yeah.
when you look at the fact that he's got a win over Price, Randy Brown, Tyron Woodley, and now Chiesa since the Wonder Boy fight, it's interesting, and he's a little bit different. We kind of look at him as a brawler. At least that's I always kind of looked at him, and now we're seeing that he has this other technique, that he, and so that was a little bit surprising and something that you can bring to the table for a Usman fight that maybe doesn't exist among a lot of the other. Like we probably wouldn't imagine seeing, Wonder Boy throw a darce on somebody, right? Like, so, but
Yeah.
we'd expect Wonder Boy to stand and bang. Well, with Luque, we expect him to stand and bang. Now he's submitting people. So who knows? But big win for him. And fun overall event. Tisha Torres picks up a win. Yadong Song picks up another win.
I know I was a little bothered by that one. I had so just even though I think I officially I submitted my pick that Cyril Gane was going to win by decision. He got the TKO or whatever. But when I make my little bets, I actually had a 2-fighter parlay with Lewis and then Angela Hill winning. So that one hurt in the pockets. That didn't work out the way I wanted it to. But hey, man, interesting thing though, just for the heavyweight division before we leave UFC 265, I mentioned the video that Okamoto posted. He also shared a video with Ngannou where he said they're fighting for the number 2 spot. Those two guys. He's like, because Stipe is number 1. I just beat him. He's still number 1. So I just thought that was interesting. I mean, just to add back to what we were saying about what's next for the heavyweight division, I figured it's worth mentioning before we move into Bellator this weekend. Bellator is back in my neck of the woods in the East Coast, Mohegan Sun.
Yeah, UFC 264, the return of one of the legends of MMA who doesn't get necessarily
Bellator
do the
264.
what did I say UFC
Yeah.
Bellator, but Gegard Mousasi returns to defend his middleweight championship. 47-7. Beaten and
crazy.
fought everybody there is to fight
Yeah.
from 170 up to heavyweight, open weight.
Mhm.
He fights John Salter, who is 18-4.
The salty dog.
It's kind of one of the mandatory challenger fights.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, that's kind of where we're at. I think with this, Salter had earned a title shot that he eventually lost to. Actually, it wasn't. I don't believe it was a title shot. No, was. I don't know if it was a title shot against Rafael Lovato. I have to go back and check. But it was 3-round fight. So he lost to Lovato. That might have been actually what set up the fight for Lovato against Mousasi, which he eventually won the title, which Mousasi has since gotten back. But he's on a 3-fight win streak. Mousasi, never loses, it seems like, but other than to Lovato. And since then he's got a win over Machida and then the big win over Douglas Lima, which was at the time for the vacant belt. I mean, I don't see any way really around picking Mousasi to win this fight, short of not a fluke, but something kind of odd happening, maybe perhaps an injury or something. I got to go with Mousasi. I fear this might be one of those fights where he kind of fights to his opponent's level a little bit, and so we might end up seeing a 5-round decision win here. But I think clearly from start to finish, I think Mousasi is going to be the better fighter. In this fight.
Funny thing about Mousasi is the last time I talked to him face to face was at the when they did the spring summer thing, right just the week COVID hit in the Viacom building. And one of the things he said to me was, when the fight, those 7 losses, right? It's 7 on there. Yeah. Those 7 losses, when I asked him about, I forgot how we got into it, but he was like, usually when I lose, it's because I don't feel like fighting. Like, I'm not into it.
That's kind of what it's been. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, so I haven't really seen many interviews. I don't know if Lynch has spoken to him, because Lynch seems to interview James Lynch seems to interview everybody. But I have to see like this week's media to kind of gauge his where he's at, and that'll help me make a decision. But more times than not, like you said, it's hard to pick against him. I know John Salter's very crafty on the ground. I mean, we know him from his funny jiu-jitsu videos and stuff like that he's done on the internet. And but I just feel like when it comes to it's funny because it's making me think about the main event for the Lights Out Extreme Fighting that happened this past weekend, Sean Merriman's thing. There in the main event there was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu versus a brown belt, but the blue belt had more experience in MMA and he kind of just dominated the brown belt guy. And that's just what I see when it comes to fighting, not just your particular discipline, which MMA pretty much is when it comes to combat sports. It's hard not to pick Mousasi, especially with 47 wins.
Exactly. I mean, he's seen it all.
Yeah.
It's hard to think he's going to see something, particularly from Salter, that maybe he hadn't seen before. But yeah, I mean, and then that it's still, HH Musashi's fight is definitely must-watch TV. The co-main event has Sabah Humasti coming off of a Fight of the Year candidate loss to Paul Daly, fighting Andrei Korshkov, who
former champion,
who went off, picked up a win outside of Bellator in his previous fight, after a tough split decision loss.
He's a protege of like another well-known Russian fighter,
Alexander Shlemenko.
Thank you. I don't know why I forgot that.
Yep, Storm Shlemenko, who the rumor is that he might Bellator might. He was another former Bellator champion, and I heard a rumor that perhaps they might try to get him on the Moscow card.
Well, why? How could they not? Right?
I mean, you would think it would all make sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, it depends on what contracts he signed with other people, and what part of the Russian mafia wants him to fight on that card as opposed to another one. But yeah, I mean, I think this is another fight. Humasi obviously had a fun fight with Paul Daly, but he's 15-9. Korshkov is 23-4. I think this is another case of Korshkov being the better mixed martial artist, and maybe just kind of another like a warm up fight to get his feet back in the the water a little bit with
Mm-hmm.
Bellator. With that said, you always got to be careful, and Korshkov, has lost I believe 2 of his last 3 in Bellator, Lima and Daly, with a win in the middle of those 2, but or not Daly, Larkin, who's who he lost the decision to. But I got to go with Korshkov.
Yeah. No, me
I think
too.
I think he gets a finish actually in this fight, um, and I mean I'd be interested to see how Homasi comes out. He was guns blazing against Daly, had Daly hurt early, and then ended up kind of getting the hell beat out of him as the fight wound down.
Yeah.
Wondering what that takes out of him, and where he's at. And I think Korshkov will expose that if he's not 100% of what he was, like he was in the Daly fight.
Yeah. This one's an interesting one for me. Magomedov versus Rafian Stotts, who I know Rafian from fighting the VFC back in like way 2015, 2016. So when they signed him, this fight is actually interesting to me. I mean, I know Magomed. Well, we have that running joke here about the Magomeds in MMA, but I mean, this one is a coin toss for me. I really can't call it.
Yeah, Stotts is on a big winning streak, and that includes 4 in a row in Bellator, um, and he comes in at 16-1, whereas Magomedov is 18-1 with his only loss being to Peter Yan, who he also has a victory over, the UFC bantamweight champion.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're 18-1 and your only loss is a split of 2 fights with arguably the best bantamweight in the world, it's hard for me to go against it. Plus, I don't think I could go. I can't bet against a Magomedov. Like it's just
No,
not. Even
it's hard.
if his name was Matthew Magomedov, I'd still vote for him. But he's got 2 Magomeds in there, and that's tough. But it is a real challenge. The winner of this fight obviously becomes a top contender
Yeah.
at 135 for Sergio Pettis. But it's hard to even pick. I mean, I'm gonna go with Magomedov just for the reasons I just said because of his name. But I think that he's obviously, if you survive the Russian circuit of fights and you come out of there 18-1, you're a different 18-1 than
that's true.
Than some of these other guys. So that's it's not McKee coming up through Bellator and
No.
getting fed here and there, some fights that kind of work him way up, and
No.
he Magomedov, if you fight for ACA and stuff, there's killers left and right.
Yeah.
You have no idea who there are. So I'm gonna go with Magomedov, but I think that this also has I think this is a fun. Yeah, exactly. There's no. It's Wild West still. Out there. So good fight. I'm picking Magomedov. But I just think it's
I wouldn't be surprised if Stotts could pull one off, or if it even goes to a decision. You know what I mean? Because I mean, like you said, we'll see what happens when the bell rings. But this fight here, I mean, it's listed as on the main card. I feel like this might be changing by the time Friday rolls around, but we'll see. A heavyweight. I don't know anything about, especially Everett Cummins. Looks like his pro debut.
Yeah, see that this is the first time we get to rag on Bellator now, because I pull him up on Tapology, and he is 15-0.
Oh, so they need to get this website under.
Yeah, because I'm showing him at 15-0. Most of his fights, he did fight at Bellator 193, which was here in Temecula, actually. And most of his other fights. So it looks like he's kind of in the Gladiator Challenge. Fought in Bellator 132.
Messed up.
Yeah, so I show him as well. Not only do I show him as 15-0, I also show him as 5-0 as an amateur. So we might be looking at a
Everett Cummins.
Everett Cummins being a solid heavyweight contender.
How about Mr. Franklin?
Davian Franklin is 3-0 with all 3 wins in Bellator. So,
Knockouts or
let me. I have
I guess we're
a
leaning towards Mr. Cummings on this one.
ground and pound punches, 2 first-round finishes with punches, and a decision. Bellator 239, 46, and 259. So
Just for our audio listeners, we're going off of comparing the Bellator MMA website to Tapology.
yeah, we bring up Bellator on the screen, but I like to use Tapology on my iPad here. So basically, you know, but so if that's all the way we're going, it looks like we got a 3-0 heavyweight who's 3-0 in Bellator, fighting in, you know, the era of not living on cardboard and stuff at the beach. This isn't the monster fight series or anything like that, versus a guy who's apparently 15-0, but his 15-0, I can tell you, seeing some of the events he fought on, probably is not like the Russian one that I was talking about before. Probably hasn't been through a massive killers, but at 15-0 at heavyweight, that's still something to be said. So that'll be an interesting one. And then that brings us to the opening fight of the card. 5-2 Ty Gwerder, coming off a loss at Bellator 250. He's actually 1-2 in Bellator. So if anything, this might be the fight that gets bounced around, but the prelims aren't as deep as everybody else
used to seeing.
Yeah, his opponent's 10-4. Geez, I'm not even gonna try the first name. The last name Bestayev. The first one's kind of funny. I don't even want to try it.
Kadzi, we'll say Kadzi.
Yeah, but he's coming off a Contender Series loss to Phil Hawes. And prior to that, he also did some of the Gladiator Challenge and some LFA fights. So he is 10-4. Obviously, has a little more experience than the 5-2 fighter, but you know, top 3 fights on this card, pretty heavy. After looking into it, I'm definitely interested to see what Everett Cummings brings to the table. Prelims are a little bit more of a throwback to the old school Bellator prelims, not the biggest names. But we've been seeing Bellator prelims so stacked lately. You can't really constantly stack the prelims,
especially with they have the event in the South Dakota, and then I think it's off to Russia after that. I forget.
Yeah, so we'll see how that all unfolds with travel changes and
COVID stuff.
So hopefully the Russian event really goes down, because it would be a shame to see Fedor really get his career pushed back months more without a fight when he was trying to squeeze in a couple more before it's incredibly too late. So interesting, but yeah, it should be a fun weekend. I mean, you know, you can't go wrong with Musasi's fighting. So that's nice, and it's a weekend off from the UFC, so fans can focus on Bellator. We can kind of see what their numbers get now when they don't have any direct competition, and see how that unfolds. But I think that kind of brings us to the end of the show for this week. Fans can always check us out at allaccessmma.com. Check out our audio podcast everywhere audio podcasts are available. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Ed, how's Twitch going these days? You got any new games? Anything new?
No, it's too nice out to be playing video games. So I'll probably play. I found out I could stream off of my phone though. I've been playing poker on my phone, so maybe I'll stream some of that. But I haven't been streaming too many, just this stuff like this on Twitch. No games lately because it's summertime in New Jersey and we don't get a lot of nice days out here, so I got to take it.
T-shirt weather, T-shirt time, right? Isn't that what you guys say out there?
Yeah, T-shirt weather for at least a couple of months. So
nice. All right, well, have a good rest of the weekend, and thanks to everybody for listening.
Peace.